So, there was this woman, Clara Bennett, real sharp and ambitious. She'd just landed her dream gig at Thorne Enterprises, one of the big shot companies in New York. It was years of busting her, but finally paying off. She aced business school and beat out a ton of other folks for the job. First day, she shows up early, ready to knock their socks off. But of course, things went sideways quick. Some clumsy fool spilled coffee on her silk blouse at the coffee cart, so she had to find a place to change pronto. She figures a conference room is empty, so she ducks in, stands in front of this huge mirror, and starts unbuttoning her shirt. And just as she's getting it off, the door swings open. In walks this tall dude in a super expensive suit. Turns out it's Elliot Thorne himself, the CEO. They lock eyes in the mirror, and Clara just freezes up. "You," Elliot starts to say, but Clara's quick, grabs her spare blouse, and holds it up to cover herself. "Get out," she yells, face bright red. Elliot apologizes, but instead of leaving right away, he hangs back for a second, looking kinda amused, kinda hard to read. Then he finally leaves, and Clara's heart is going a mile a minute. Little did she know, that messed up first encounter would change everything. Clara got used to the crazy fast pace at Thorne pretty quick. She was working harder than anyone, determined to prove she deserved to be there. Every day, she'd arrive early, be completely prepped, and always bring fresh ideas to the table. Elliot Thorne, the CEO, couldn't help but notice her. He was really drawn to her smarts and drive. He tried to keep it professional in meetings, but he'd often glance at Clara, like he was just fascinated by her energy and how focused she was. One night, pretty late, Clara got asked to stick around and finish up a marketing plan for some big campaign. Elliot decided to join her, said he wanted to give his thoughts. There they were in this quiet conference room, with just the lights on, throwing ideas back and forth. Clara lays out this really bold plan, and Elliot couldn't help but admire her. "You really got a remarkable vision," Elliot says, his voice deep in the quiet room. He looks at Clara longer than he probably should have. Clara smiles back, but she could feel something hanging in the air. As Clara bends over to tidy up her stuff, Elliot steps closer, so close she could feel his breath on her skin. "Clara," he says softly, his voice sounding different, kinda charged. Clara looks up, and their eyes meet. In that moment, nothing else mattered. Elliot leaned in, his breath warm and steady against her cheek, and kissed her. The kiss was intense and sudden, catching Clara off guard. For a split second, her mind screamed at her to stop, but the pull between them was too strong to resist. At first she froze, her hands trembling at her sides. But as the warmth of his lips got a hold of her, and she felt something light up inside, a spark she kinda buried deep down. Next thing you know, her arms are around his neck, pulling him in closer, and the kiss just got more intense. The room felt hotter, the air just crackling with wanting. Elliot's hands were firm, but gentle too, as he ran them along her back, pulling her closer and closer. It was like they both forgot about everything else. Elliot gently picked her up and put her on the big conference table. Papers went flying, but neither of them even noticed. Every touch, every kiss, was like they were both saying everything they couldn't say with words, just giving in to the moment. Clara shivered as his lips moved down her neck, his hands just right, not too rough, not too soft. "Elliot," she whispered, her voice kinda shaky with surprise and wanting. He looked up at her, his eyes saying everything he couldn't voice. She was everything he wanted. They just let go and let the moment take over, lost in each other till the early hours. Clara woke up still on that conference table, the morning sun shining through the windows. Elliot had his arms around her and smiled when she moved. "Good morning," he whispered, kissing her forehead. What did we just do?" Clara whispered back, feeling a mix of embarrassment and a little bit of fear. "What I wanted to do for a long time," Elliot said, looking right at her. But worry started to creep in. "Is this going to mess up my career? Am I making a mistake?" she thought. Elliot, seeing that she was getting worried, gently took her hand, his eyes telling her that it would all be all right. For now, Clara decided to push those worries aside. That night was the start of a secret thing, filled with wanting, sweetness, and a whole lot of risk. The secret thing between Clara and Elliot went on for months. They were careful at work, acted like they were just colleagues in front of everyone else. But when they were alone, all that tension turned into some serious passion. Clara was happy, but also nervous. She loved how Elliot listened to her, cared about what she thought, and treated her so well in private. But the more she fell for him, the more she worried about what was going to happen. Is he really serious about us, or am I just a thing for right now? Her fears started to become real when Sophie Blackwood, Elliot's old business partner and ex-girlfriend, showed up again. Sophie was powerful, knew what she wanted, and knew how to get attention. During a meeting, she made some pointed comments about Elliot's past, which just made Clara even more unsure of herself. "Remember when we used to work together, Elliot? You always knew how to make the women on your team feel special," Sophie said. Sophie's voice was dripping with something nasty, like she was trying to start something, and the whole room just went silent. Clara kept her cool, but those words were like little darts, sticking in her brain. After the meeting, Sophie came up to Clara, looking right through her like she was nothing. "You think you're something special, Clara?" Sophie asked with a fake smile. "I used to be where you are. He always makes women think they're irreplaceable. But what happens in the end?" Clara just stood there, not knowing what to say. Sophie kept going. "He promised me everything, just like he's doing with you now. But when he didn't need me anymore, he moved on. I just wanted to give you a heads up before you get hurt." Sophie's words were like a punch to the gut, making Clara question everything. She started replaying her moments with Elliot, wondering if they were really special, or if she was just another girl on a long list. The final straw was this charity thing the company threw. Sophie, wanting to embarrass Clara, started talking about her past with Elliot right out in the open. "Clara, did you know that Elliot once promised me the European strategy job? Then he gave it to someone else. He's got a habit of making women feel like they're one of a kind, but the truth is, anyone can be replaced." Clara felt everyone in the room looking at her. Elliot tried to calm things down, but it just made it worse, made her feel even more humiliated. After the party, Clara spent the whole night walking around her apartment, her mind racing. She kept hearing Sophie's words over and over, each one hurting more than the last. "Am I just a piece in his game?" she whispered, her chest aching. The next morning, Clara knew what she had to do. She walked into Elliot's office, her hands shaking as she held the resignation letter she typed up at 2 a.m., the words all blurry from tears. "I can't do this anymore," Clara said, her voice cracking as she put the letter on his desk. "I trusted you with everything, my job, my heart, but now I don't even know who you are." "Clara, please," Elliot begged, sounding desperate. "You know me better than anyone. You have to believe me." "How can I?" she whispered, her voice barely there. "You didn't stand up for me, Elliot. You let Sophie tear us apart." "Clara, I love you. Everything Sophie said is BS," Elliot tried to explain, but Clara stopped him. "How do I know that's true? I can't live with all this doubt. I gotta leave before I lose everything, my career, my self-respect, and myself." Clara walked out of the office, leaving Elliot standing there, totally crushed and helpless. After leaving Thorne, Clara moved to Boston, looking for a fresh start. She needed to get away, not just from Elliot, but from all the messed up memories of their relationship. Being the hard worker she is, Clara started her own company, Bennett Digital, doing digital marketing. It was tough at first, but her talent and never-give-up attitude paid off. Big contracts started coming in, and Bennett Digital quickly became one of the top. A couple of months after getting to Boston, Clara finds out she's pregnant. This news hit her like a ton of bricks. She had some sleepless nights trying to figure out if she should tell Elliot about the baby. But then she remembered what Sophie had said, all the hurt from the past, and decided to keep it to herself. She gave birth to a baby girl, Lila, on a night with a full moon. Looking at her daughter's gray eyes, Clara couldn't deny that Lila looked a whole lot like Elliot. But she promised herself she'd give Lila a good life, even without a dad. Fast forward 2 years, and Bennett Digital is doing great. Clara's on the cover of some business magazine, holding Lila's hand, proud of her career and being a mom. But that article got the attention of Elliot Thorne. One evening, while Clara's making dinner for her daughter, the phone rings. The name on the screen made her freeze. It was someone she thought she'd never hear from again. Clara, we need to talk, Elliot's voice said, sounding calm but serious. I saw the article. Lila? Is she mine? Clara's heart stopped. She looked over at her daughter, who was playing with her favorite toy, a stuffed elephant. She knew that the life she had worked so hard to build was about to change forever. Clara agreed to meet Elliot, not just because he was pushing for it, but because she needed to hear what he had to say. They met at this quiet cafe, a place where they could talk without getting interrupted. Elliot showed up on time, looking stressed but determined. When Clara sat down, she looked at him, feeling all kinds of things at once. Anger, doubt, and maybe a little bit of hope. Clara, Elliot started, his voice gentle but firm. I know I've hurt you, but you need to hear the whole story. Sophie? She made everything up. Clara frowned. What are you talking about? Elliot took a deep breath, his hands tightening on the table. Sophie couldn't handle that I broke things off with her. She made up lies, spread rumors, anything to mess things up between us. But Clara, the truth is, I never betrayed you. His voice cracked as he leaned in. You're not just some fling or part of some game. You're the woman who challenges me, inspires me, and makes me want to be a better man. I love you, Clara. I always have. Clara stared at him, her walls slowly coming down under the weight of his words. She remembered all those late nights they spent together, how he listened to her, how he looked at her like she was the only woman in the world. What if I was wrong, she thought, her heart aching with both relief and fear. Clara looked into Elliot's eyes and saw that he was being real. What about the things she said about your past? She only told you half the story, Elliot said, never breaking eye contact. Yeah, I've made mistakes in the past, but what I feel for you is something totally different. I love you, Clara, and I don't want to lose you or Lila. Elliot's words left Clara speechless. Memories of remembering all the good times, how he always had her back, how he always valued her ideas, came crashing back. I was wrong about you, Clara whispered, with tears running down her face. Elliot, I'm so sorry. Elliot smiled gently and took her hand. What matters is that you believe me now. I want a chance to start over, not just for Lila, but for us. Clara nodded, feeling a huge weight lift off her shoulders. We can try again, but it's got to be slow. I need to know you're serious. I get it, Elliot said, his voice steady. I'll do whatever it takes to prove it. For the first time in years, Clara felt like she could trust that things would get better. For herself, for Elliot, and for Lila. Clara was sitting in her office, looking out the window, trying to get her head straight after meeting with Elliot at the cafe. No matter how hard she tried to calm down, his heartfelt words kept replaying in her mind. Suddenly, her office door swings open and Elliot walks in. He shuts the door behind him, staring at her with those intense gray eyes. Elliot, what are you doing here? Clara stood up, but before she could say anything else, Elliot was already walking toward her, getting closer and closer. Clara, he said, his voice low and full of feeling. I can't wait any longer. I need you to know something. Before he could finish, Clara looked into his eyes, seeing that same determined, passionate look she felt for years ago. I already believe you, Elliot, she whispered. He stopped, surprised, but then a slow smile spread across his face. Then let me show you how much I mean it, he whispered back. Before she could say a word, Elliot leaned in and kissed her. It was their first kiss after being apart for years, and it was fierce and all-consuming. Clara felt a rush of emotions, love, longing, and a passion that had been buried deep down, hitting her like a tidal wave. Elliot, she whispered as he pulled her closer. I've missed you, Clara. Not just you at work, but all of you, he said, kissing her neck, sending shivers down her spine. They couldn't stop themselves. The longing they'd both been holding back exploded into a fire. Elliot guided her back towards her desk. Papers fell to the floor, but neither of them even noticed. His hands moved with purpose, his lips exploring every inch of her, as if he was rediscovering her. They came together with a raw, intense energy, just like those late nights in his conference room years ago. We can start over, Clara whispered between kisses. Not just start over, Elliot replied, his eyes burning with conviction. I want it all. You, Lila, and a future I'll never let go of again. In that moment, Clara knew she was ready to give him her heart again. Elliot knew that to really be a part of Clara's life, he needed to build a connection with Lila, their 2-year-old daughter. She was still really young, but Lila was cautious and took her time to warm up to strangers. Their first meeting was at a park near Clara's house. Lila was in the sandbox, scooping sand into a small. Elliot carefully sat down next to her, trying not to scare her. "That's a great castle," he said quietly, trying to sound friendly. Lila looked up at him, her big gray eyes full of curiosity. She didn't say anything, just watched him for a few seconds before going back to her work. Clara, watching from a distance, smiled at how calm her daughter was. Elliot gently picked up a small rock and put it next to the little tower. "How about we build a bridge here?" he asked, pointing with his hand. Lila looked at the rock and then back at him. After a moment, she nodded slowly. "Bridge," she said, testing the word. Elliot felt a little spark of hope. It was a start. Over the next few weeks, Elliot took every chance he could to spend time with Lila. One day at the zoo, Lila got really excited about the elephants. "Elephant," she shouted, pointing at the huge creatures walking by. "You like elephants?" Elliot asked, kneeling down to her level. Lila nodded her head really hard, clapping her hands together. "Big," she said. "That's right, they're big and strong," he said, gently messing up her hair. Little by little, Elliot became a regular part of Lila's life. He learned to read her bedtime stories, even though he had to make them shorter, because she didn't have a long attention span. Clara's heart melted as she watched Lila lean against Elliot's shoulder, sometimes saying little words like, "More, Daddy." The first time Lila called Elliot Daddy, well, it just about made his heart explode with happiness. 2 years after Elliot and Clara officially started over, their lives had completely changed. Elliot moved Thorne Enterprises headquarters to Boston, not just to be closer to his family, but to have a better balance between work and personal life. Something he'd always missed before. The three of them now lived in a nice house in the suburbs, where Lila could run around and be a kid. One morning in the spring, Clara woke up to the sunlight coming through the windows and the sound of Lila laughing. "Daddy, I did it," Lila shouted, showing off a drawing of an elephant, her favorite animal. Elliot, still in his pajamas, knelt down to look at the picture. "That's amazing, Lila. I think we should hang this up." Clara walked into the living room, smiling as she saw Elliot and Lila sitting on the floor with crayons and paper everywhere. "You two are making a mess again," she teased, holding a cup of coffee. "Don't worry, it's all part of the plan," Elliot said, winking. Their lives were now full of these little moments that meant so much. Family dinners, trips to the park, and bedtime stories that turned their house into a real home. Then one day, Elliot got down on one knee in their backyard garden. This time, he held out a new ring and said, "Clara, I want to thank you for giving me a second chance. You're not just my love, you're the..." And that's the end. Hope you're happy with the results. Let me know if you need anything else. Person who turned this house into a home. Will you marry me again? Tears were streaming down Clara's face, but they were happy tears this time. "Of course," she said, hugging him tight. At their small wedding, with just close friends and family, Lila got to carry the rings. She was so proud as she watched her parents say their vows, knowing she was a big part of this special moment. In the end, Clara and Elliot had built something they never thought they could, a perfect family.